Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have one of those voices that I don't actually need this, but for the recording, I have to use it. Welcome to all of you to the third session of our local business environment forum. We're on the rules and interpretations part. We are going to start with a reading basically from James Wernicke, that I think he was going to submit it to letters to the editor or something, but it'll give you just listen. It's a good letter he wrote.
Good evening, Los Alamos. My name is James Wernicke, and I'm a member of the Los Alamos Local Business Coalition Steering Committee. Los Alamos is a testament to what's possible when innovation and oversight work in harmony. It also serves as a stark reminder of what happens when they don't. We've created processes to ensure fairness and accountability, but in doing so, created a culture where following process matters more than delivering results. When we care more about saying no correctly than we do about saying yes to opportunity, we choose to make scarce the things that should be abundant. Affordable housing slips further out of reach, businesses close or never start, the services we want become the services we're not allowed to have. The bureaucracy that's meant to ensure equity consumes the energy that's meant for prosperity. It's not for a lack of caring or fecklessness, but we must face the fact that our devotion to process is a form of trade-off denial. Just as climate denial pretends pollution has no cost, we must stop pretending we can have every oversight, every requirement, and every safeguard without stopping the very progress we say we want. We cannot keep layering rules and expecting results. The weight collapses the vision. We can do better. Instead of letting fear force us to ask, is this allowed? We can lead with heart and courage to ask, does this help? Our county's plans already speak of our community's values: affordable housing, economic vitality, and community health. It's time to demonstrate those values not in words, but in action. It's time to see local entrepreneurs treated not as applicants to screen, but as partners to support. It's time to redesign processes so that they are clear, swift, and flexible, so our energy isn't wasted navigating red tape, but channeled into building Los Alamos' future. Los Alamos has everything it needs to thrive, except perhaps the willingness to get out of its own way. Let's fix that and be the kind of community that chooses to build, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Thank you.
So a good letter, right? There we go. Thank you. Okay, so you've seen this before. This is basically the mission statement of the Business Coalition team. The main thing I want to point out here is that the coalition is attempting to be a collaborative group of people that want to work with the county for the betterment of the business environment. You've also seen this already if you watched any of the stuff from the last forum. The one thing I want to point out, and then I'll give you a moment to read it all, but the sixth bullet over there on the left talks about cities work. And the county council unanimously voted Tuesday night to engage with cities work to hopefully improve the county processes. So that's a really good thing. We're excited. I'm giving you all a moment to read. So we're going to review our previous forums. Our first forum, we sort of just took surveys and asked people questions and determined the top 5 challenges facing the business community. These are very broad categories, but we took all of your comments and put them into these the main categories of challenges that you all faced. Again, you've seen these before. The second forum was about the county plans. So there are a bunch of county plans that are out there, and the coalition steering team reviewed those plans looking for areas that affected local business. And what we found in general was that the plans had a lot to say about ideas for helping local businesses and encouraging economic vitality and things like that. But after the meeting, it was almost unanimous that the plans, although they had some great ideas and some great actions that could be taken, they weren't really being implemented. They were not, the ideas and the plans were not being effectively implemented. So that was a nice thing to know about. So that chart on the right is a little bit strange, and I'm not going to go over it, but what we did was sort of look at each of the plans and how each of those plans addressed each of those 5 challenges that businesses face. So that's what that chart is about. This is a list of the next 3 forums, including tonight's. So tonight we're going to be talking about existing rules and things like that, and how those rules influence the local economy and the businesses. We're going to talk especially about the LEDA process. So you'll be hearing about that. Forum 4, we're going to talk about tools and strategies. And so that's on May 8th, and I hope that you'll put that on your calendar. And Allan has put on here that there's going to be pizza and soda. And then Forum 5, the last one, is a summary and action planning. The hope is that we take all of this data that we're gathering together and we put it in some sort of document or slideshow or something that we can then give to the Los Alamos County and the LA CDC and the chamber, so that we can all really start collaborating and coming up with solutions to those 5 challenges. So that's the plan. Again, please mark your calendars. Okay, this is kind of our plan for today. We've already seen James. Steve Shaw is going to give a talk here in just a moment. John Courtright's going to be here. And then I'll go over these as we go. But let me introduce Steve Shaw. I'm going to let him tell you more about himself, but I've been told that he's been an architect and developer up here for a long time and has worked with the county and on lots of different things. So he's got a perspective and information for us. So Steve Shaw. Can I help you? Now you also get to talk into this.
Okay, I can do that. So anyway, yeah, I'm Steve Shaw, lifelong resident of Los Alamos. Moved here in 1951. I've been in business for myself for 49 years in Los Alamos. I have a lot of background as far as doing business in Los Alamos and doing business with Los Alamos, also doing business with the laboratory and the county. And, you know, as much as it may escape some business owners, the county is a business also, as well as the laboratory and the state and the feds. They're all businesses. And as you know, being in business presents lots and lots of challenges. When one day something works and the next day, all of a sudden, it doesn't. And so you have to be kind of on your toes. I don't know, when I started my business almost 50 years ago, I had to come up with a hell of a business plan. And I know that I had a somewhat of a charmed start simply because becoming an architect isn't quite like opening a normal business. I'm a professional service, and a professional service dictates that you act a little bit differently and that your requirements are somewhat different. Now, Shannon's dad, Elmo, is who gave me he liberated me. I worked for another architect here in town, and he was a good architect, but he was a nice way to say it. He was a jerk. And one day, he and Shannon's dad got into a big heated argument, and Elmo came out and came up to my drafting table and took his fist and bam, hit it on my drafting table. And he said to me, "When you get ready to leave that son of a bitch, you come see me." And so a few years later, I was licensed. I talked to the boss. He said, "Oh, I suppose you're going to want a raise, huh?" And I said, "You betcha." He said, "Well," I said, "Well, you're going to charge 40 an hour for my time. I'd like to see 20. And he said, "I'll give you 10. And I said, "You know what? Why don't you consider this my 2 weeks' notice?" Well, when I entered into this profession, I thought a lot about, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Where do I start? And I started at the very bottom as a drafter in a firm in Santa Fe, and I worked my way all the way up. I actually never completed college. Where I went to school, they doubled the tuition for us undesirables from out of state, and I ran out of money, so I decided I would try to get a job and go back to school. Never made enough money to do that, but I apprenticed into the profession. For 10 years, I apprenticed, and then they allowed me to sit for the professional exam. So I went through the ringer. I learned this thing by the seat of my pants. I had enough college education to understand what was going to be needed of me, and eventually I was tested to see if I had the same knowledge as a master's degree college graduate, and I passed the exam. So, done with my apprenticeship, Elmo gave me my start. After about a year, he said, "You're doing fine. Now get the hell out of here." And he kicked me out, and I went into the small business center, and I remained in there in a windowless office, growing my business for about 10 years. And then the opportunity came along, and I met a couple other architects that lived here in town, and they knew another architect who lived in Espanola. And we started talking and thought, if we joined forces, we could compete with those Albuquerque architects and the Santa Fe architects that get all the laboratory work. So we formed a corporation of corporations. The lesson that I learned there is it's important to know what your limitations are. If you're not a lawyer, you need to hire one. If running your business is a serious event, and if you're going to succeed, you need the right tools to do it. And my suggestion to all business owners, and I learned this by doing it, hire a good attorney, hire a good CPA, and hire a good bookkeeper, somebody that you trust. Now, if you like doing the books, then you ought to be the bookkeeper and hire somebody to run the business. Find out what is it as a business person you want to do. What turns you on? Are you doing it? What would it take to make it possible for you to do what you want to do? Thinking about your business and where it's going is very important. It's the survival of your business. One of the things I think that gets in the way almost always when you start imagining what could I do to increase my business? Gee, if I just could maybe, I could serve coffee. I could maybe serve some donuts. I could bring some people in. Maybe ice cream. I don't know. And so you start going through and thinking about ways to make your business better, and you hit on something, and you say, that's it, I'm going to do it. And you go out and do it. But, it doesn't just end there because you had a good idea. Good ideas require also the same amount of research as your original business plan. Is your good idea going to fly? Shannon and I went through that over there in your home building with Senor Turta, and the idea was, gee, we've got this new business. It's exciting. He's enthusiastic. We're enthusiastic. But what? Damn, we only have one bathroom. And this particular business, with its number of employees and employing both sexes and having the general public in there, Shannon, you're getting in and out of their bathroom. Holy shit! Yeah, it was expensive and it took a lot of time, but it's done now. And the facility, that particular suite, is open for all kinds of possibilities. It was a pain in the butt. We got it taken care of. I know you're having difficulties. I've been having difficulties for 49 years with the county, and things change. Everything changes, not just the price of bread at the grocery store, but the International Building Code, for instance, which is subscribed to by the United States and the Virgin Islands and some of the other holding territories. But like the Dominican Republic, I looked it up to see, because they just had that nightclub collapse, and they have a version of the Uniform Building Code, which is what we used to use here. But the International Building Code covers a lot of areas that were kind of blurred in the Uniform Building Code. So that code is reviewed and changed every 3 years. And so what was allowed 5 years ago may not be allowed now. And it's a pain in the butt. I can tell you, all the different building codes that are out there are hard to get familiar with. And most of us, even the folks at the county, we know where to find stuff in the code because we have to look stuff up all the time. So we're pretty fast at using the code. But I got to tell you, if your business or if somebody that the coalition is trying to help to open a business, I think we need to look at some means of enlightening these potential business people about the processes that are necessary to get your business open successfully and to know what the hell is going on. There's too much mystery. I'm in favor, a great favor of having some sort of a presentation for the county, but I don't think mailing it to or emailing it to them is the solution. Take your presentation over to the county, put it in the council chambers, invite the county to come. Everybody that I have worked with over there is very excited about the Los Alamos Business Coalition, and they also see that we need to have a line of communication to open up things, to have a positive input from this organization, and to get positive input back from the county. And so my position here, um, I'm here to listen. Um, I had the pleasure of being the board president of the YMCA for 10 years. And we were in big trouble when I took over the board. And over 10 years, we turned everything around because we hired a professional consultant to come in and train us how to go out and get the kind of people to back us that we needed to be credible. And so they told us, develop your board of directors, get people of influence and affluence on your board of directors. Well, that's a YMCA, it's a board of directors. I think as far as the business coalition goes, it seems to make sense to me for a long-range goal, maybe for the coalition, and I'm a business person too, would be to think in bigger terms of what this organization is, what it wants to become. You know, years ago when I started my business, I joined the Chamber of Commerce because the Chamber offered health insurance to its chamber members. And I thought, geez, you know, I'm starting my business. That really would help. I'm joining the Chamber. And for the next, I don't know how many years, I got a 6x6 tile, and that was it. I didn't get any representation. I didn't pick up any work. And so all of a sudden then, the chamber becomes a commerce and development corporation, and I can't see that it functions quite like a chamber should. Now this business coalition is starting to surface because people in business are not being taken at face value. We're not second-class citizens. We're business people, and in a lot of communities, we're the anchors of the community. Los Alamos started backwards. The industry came to Los Alamos, and then the businesses came as a convenience to the laboratory. And so, unfortunately, historically, we have always been second-class citizens because we're simply here as a convenience for the laboratory historically. And so it's been a real struggle to do business in Los Alamos. For me, it's been for some of you guys, and it's going to be for people coming in. I think if we as business people do our job as business people, we can help to educate the new generation of people coming into town, to help them get through the process, to help them understand that the process is not meant to deny them. What the process is meant to do is follow the intent of the building codes, which are the law, and to enforce them. And that's for your protection, my protection, and the general public's protection. So anyway, I'm available to answer questions or relay horror stories or success stories, whatever you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. He had some ideas for this coalition. That's great. Okay, so John Courtright, I think, came in. There you are. You have a few words to say?
See, our numbers are not as big as we'd like. Well, that's good. So, my name is John Courtright. I currently own J&L Self Storage. It is a joint venture with my sister. She's the L and I'm the J, obviously. And it's a family business. My dad and Sharon's dad were friendly competitors and good friends, is a good way to say that. And over the years, my dad got to know Steve as well. I will plug him a little bit. Steve has been kind of one of the grease, I would say, to some of the wheels that need to be taken care of when you're dealing with the county on some business issue, is a good way to say it, I guess. I think the coalition, was found because there was some group of people that were not getting enough from the chamber, which Steve pointed out, and we were not getting enough from the small business center, but that's not their job. Their job was to provide and help a foot up for people that wanted to do businesses here in town. I wish we had more history about all the stores and everything that were here long ago. I'll just echo what Steve said. Everything he said is just true of how we got going here in town. And of course, the worst thing that happened was the internet. When, why do we need a store when we can phone it in and it's delivered to our door? And every time that situation started, that's what kind of put down a downfall in the business part of Los Alamos. Maybe Shannon would have a better history of why things at a certain time went away, but I grew up here, went away for 10 years, and came back to run the family business. And so we had a lot of apartments here in town, and we sold most of all that off in 20 and 22, and now we just concentrate on the storage stuff and trying to retire. So my comments are really geared towards making everything work. It takes input, and it takes not give and take, because like Steve said, the IBC is going to be the Bible. However, with that said, if you go in and want something to happen, and here it is, and you look at the IBC and you just, no, it says this. Well, Steve is very good, not circumventing that rule, but making it work because of the cards that you were dealt with. And if it wasn't Steve, it would be somebody else, but, well, maybe not. But anyway, Steve has done it for years already, and that's what the coalition kind of wants, to make sure that the county with their inspectors and development, we want to be on the same page with the county. We don't want to be, them going one way and us going another way. And if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me. Miss Laurent and I had a talk when she was granted this great job, and she has a good positive attitude of making things not what they were 10 years ago. And we want the county to grow. So that's what it takes. It takes not give and take. I keep want to say that, but that's not what it is. It takes understanding. So I spoke to 3 contractors in town that have done business. Well, actually, I spoke to 2 contractors in town that have done business with the county for years. And currently, and you'll be glad to hear this, they said that Los Alamos is one of the, and I want to say easy, but the better ones to get along with right now compared to San Miguel, Sandoval, Santa Fe, Bernalillo, Rio Arriba. And I asked him to say that again. But the point is, so Ann, you're doing something right. That's good, I think. But you just don't, you don't get to that line and say we're done. It takes a lot of work to get over the hump and get people to work that way. The comments I've got from, especially these 2 contractors that I tried to talk to a few others, but 2 came out to mind, is that they still want this information back and forth. Because you're not, you just can't say, well, I can't do this, so I'm going to go build another building elsewhere. Well, we all know you can't just go build another building somewhere because there isn't any place to do that. So you're, again, dealt the cards that you have. And they've been very good about that. Let's say since Ann's been here, they have been better, because up to a few years ago, it was difficult to make sure if you one thing said one day, it would still be true the next day. I do have one sob story from a homeowner who built a new house, had the plans all set, stamped, and approved, and then all of a sudden got a change, and he just didn't understand why. It wasn't pointed out to him. And I said, if you got that stamped, sealed, and approved, I don't see how they can come back and make you change it unless it's a life safety issue. And this was not. This is regarding a retaining wall. Well, it seems, and so by the time this gentleman, the contractor figured this out, and the gentleman was there, now we've got he's got his guys coming back and rebuilding what they already did. Now he's got since they rebuilt this wall, it changes the profile of the house a little bit, so now the HVA system won't work like they designed it originally, so now that's another change. And then there's an expense of him not living in the house, changing the plans, and of course the cost of money. And that's the kind of stuff that nobody wants to hear. But Ann, you need to hear it, because that's where the problems lie. You don't want a story from one building inspector or one part of the county office not being followed through. Because when that happens, the county gets a bad name. I'm not pointing at Ann, I'm just saying the Los Alamos County gets a bad name. It's been pointed out, if you read the paper once in a while, someone says, oh, we can't allow that. Well, I don't know why the county allows that person to do this. Well, it's not their money. The county is not there to say yay or nay regarding a piece of property. Their job is to make sure it works within the county and within the rules that, as Steve pointed out, the IBC. So, and of course, to all of us business owners, we know anything costs a lot of money to do. And, you have a great idea, but for whatever reason, sometimes you can't follow through with that. And it is the business zones. It's, is it zoned for that? Is it not? Can you do that? Can you get a waiver? So I've gone to 2 different meetings that the county now put out that I don't think ever existed before, and I will deter to Steve if I'm wrong, about what you need to do before you either rent a place or you want to start construction. Because or a remodel. And remodel is the biggie, because everything most of the time around here has to be remodeled. You've got to meet certain codes, obviously, that were not in effect even 5 years ago. So, but you want to find that information out first. You want to work with the county. My complaint, Ann, is that I think they're short-staffed. I think they need more people. And I think the 2 contractors I spoke to hinted towards that. They personally said, I've never really had problems, except one guy said on one last permit, he was trying to make sure he had the right product, that it was in the plans, and he didn't know, both were meeting the specs, but the name of the product was not for sure, because the supplier basically couldn't tell him that until he talked to him enough to get the thing on the truck delivered. And at that point in time, that should be a little give and take, because it's not like he left it out of the plans, or he's adding to the plans. It's just that he didn't know because the supplier didn't know. So there should be a little more workability there to understand that. And Steve can attest to that kind of thing, because you get over here and we get this wall or this faucet can only be 6 inches from this place. Well, there's only 4 inches there. So is it going to be a give and take? Well, 4 would work. 6 is optimum. And is it a life safety issue? No. But unless there's that conversation going back between the building people and the inspectors and the contractors in the field in a nice relationship, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of distrust. So we don't want to, Great. Okay. So anyway, I like I said, I was charged with trying to find out some information about contractors and how they're dealing with the county and how things have, I would say, improved. I have one of my own little issues that I had just here in the last 3 or 4 months, but it's not a big deal. I'm still waiting to see if someone will call me again, but it's still not a big deal. But for the most part, that is working, and that's what you need to be doing, though. You cannot operate inside your own little bubble. You can question it, why it's done, but don't sit there and think, if you think you're really getting harassed or not getting a fair deal, then you need to tell somebody besides the CDC director. That maybe not Ann particularly, but because I know that she does not want that. And none of us want that, because then the rumors spread. So if you're going to, I think work with the county, go to these meetings, have them and encourage them to do more of it. I went to one that I missed. They had lots and lots of people. And the other one I went to, there were like 4 or 5 of us. There was more staff in there than there was individuals like myself. So that's what you need to do, and I would encourage everybody to keep doing that. It's going to be a tough row to hoe no matter what. And, the county is not there to slam the door, but we all need to make sure everybody's accountable for what goes on. Because if you get some crazy rule and they can't find it in the IBC, for instance, then ask them to explain it. And if someone's is not doing their job, then I believe Ann would like to know about it, because that is not what the county's there for. They are there to help us. They're working for us, but they can't change the rules just because you've had a bad day. So I appreciate your time. I hope everybody will continue to do this. And if you do, like I say, don't hide the fact. Don't go away with hurt feelings. Ann can't change it if she doesn't know about it. So that's what it takes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Okay, so from both of those speakers, we heard about communication. Anna Dillane is next, and she's going to talk a little bit about fear, I believe.
She told me, keep it short. So this forum was intended to address how the interpretation of codes affects small businesses. Not the codes themselves, the interpretation. So I was tasked with finding people who have had interactions with the county that interpretation was an issue. Through the years of being in business here and living here, I have spoken with countless people, and this is historical. This isn't necessarily in the last few months. People who the inspector told them to do it one way, and when they've done it that way exactly, the inspector comes back and tells them it's wrong and they have to do it a different way. That was already alluded to in the conversation this evening. You go back to the permitting office over and over and over when new requirements are added on. You get different answers to questions depending upon who you speak with. That was my experience. You ask to see it in the code and the person can't find it. Also my experience. I think that we've all heard of these experiences, that this is the reason that interpretations are the issues. So when I asked people to come and speak tonight, people who literally were at the county last week and came into my store fuming because they couldn't believe they were being asked the things they were now being asked, every person I spoke with said they wouldn't come. This is where the fear comes into it. Every person I spoke with, from homeowners, business owners, previous commercial owners here in town who don't even live in town anymore, previous county councilors, they refused to come because they were afraid of retaliation. I'm afraid of retaliation. I'm trying to build relationships here, but I'm also standing up here and being the face of some of this stuff. And I think some of the other people on the steering committee are afraid of retaliation. I hope that it doesn't come to that. I hope that we can create relationships so that this doesn't happen. But when every single person I spoke with was afraid to come, people who don't even have anything left here wouldn't come. I found that surprising. We shouldn't have to be afraid. Not just because it's wrong on some level. We shouldn't have to be afraid because there should be absolutely no room for interpretation in the code. The code is the code. And everybody who works for the department that's enforcing the code should know the code well enough to know it's the code. The answer should be the same whether I talk to the head or the very, very person at the bottom of whatever the chain of command is. And if that isn't happening, and if there's room for interpretation, and if there's room for them to be more strict with me because I'm known as a loudmouth, we have a problem, and it shouldn't exist. If we had clear and consistent code that is above interpretation, the Surfy situation probably wouldn't have happened. My sign issue wouldn't have happened. That was a huge interpretation issue. 10 years ago, I know, long time ago. Buildings like CB Fox, the old Anderson Pharmacy, the old Metzger's, they might have been purchased by locals. I looked at Anderson Pharmacy. I was interested in purchasing it and retrofitting or fixing it in some way so that I could do business there. And the thought of trying to deal with the county prohibited me from making the purchase. Then the price, it was too high. But if we had clear and consistent code that was above interpretation, maybe I would have bought it. There's another building for sale now. A few of us were talking about maybe we could go in together. We're terrified of dealing with the county. I would like to put an accessory structure in my house. I've talked to other people this week. They'd like to put an accessory structure, not in their house, on their property. Terrified of talking to the county because I'm not only afraid you'll tell me that I can't put the accessory structure, I'm afraid you'll start seeing something wrong with my current house. And of course, you know, me being the vocal person that I am, I think that's likely. So it's concerning that nobody else would speak. And I feel like the lack of them here speaking says more than I could.
Thank you, Anna. So that's why we keep reiterating the fact that this coalition was started to be it's a collaborative effort. We want to work with these organizations. So don't be afraid. Okay. So our next speaker is Allan. Everybody knows Allan, and he's going to talk about the meat of why we're here today. Is that where you start? Okay. Do you want me to pass these out?
Yeah, one of each.
One of each.
I will keep.
I've already passed some out, but let me count.
Thank you. And they both need to go together.
So everybody should get one of each.
No, I just thinking. Yeah, right. Something that again we were talking that historically there has been some challenges, and I think sometimes when people try to do good, it backfires, and sometimes because of those experiences, at the end we try to protect ourselves. And I think that's at least how I feel, that the county sometimes feels that historically, by not applying the code and in a way that has been a way to bring suits or being vulnerable. So again, historically. But I just want to share two stories that I think, again, and then I think something that we mentioned before and something that is being mentioned, it is that we have seen change in the last months, and that has been in multiple areas. So, we want to acknowledge that. And again, I have two examples. One with Pi 239, that they just purchased a new oven. The other ones couldn't keep up with the demand that they have. So they just bought a new one, and now they're setting up in there and using space, right? And in order to get that, we had to do some changes. We had to change the handicap spot, and there were Chana and some Desiree, I think that's her name. They came. We had a 10-minute conversation. They brought their plans. We walk outside. We did a quick plan. Okay, we do this, then we're okay. Next week I hired some people. They came and did it, and now it was easy, right? They came, they talked, we saw, we planned, and we did it. So that is again successful, easy, working together. The other one, we did this stage, and I need a permit for this stage. I asked contractors, they thought we didn't not. As I see it as my building, I think that is something that is not affecting. So we did it, and now I'm glad I did it. Today the lab was using it, and multiple events have been happening here, and I'm glad that at least it's flat and it is not unsafe like it was before. And now we have it. So, I was trying to do the same in the other theater, the Roxy. We got a red tag because of that. And I'm trying to deal with that, which, again, part of my experience with the county in that, I went to their offices, okay, again, tell me the list of all the things that I need, right? So I can just go through the process and do it. I don't even have look at the code. I don't want to spend my time in even looking it up because it sounds boring. I'm just going to go through it, right, and making it happen. But in order to do that, and Steve, if you're still available and want to do your last job, let me know. Because I've been trying to work with Joe Padilla, and he, recommended, and he also by multiple people, but he's busy. So we've been trying to set up meetings, and always fails, and I'm busy, and it is, right? So just that, trying to start at least a talk. It takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just to, hey, okay, we met. Now, when can you do it? Okay, I have, in 2 months, I can do it, right? And then with that, I will have to find a contractor that maybe, and I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that much, but that it maybe in that time frame can come and work and be an option, right? Because they are working, they're busy, and then we know that sometimes unreliable and so many challenges. And now, again, something that it would have cost me $5,000 and I would have done it in 2 days. Now it's going to cost me, maybe $12,000, and maybe I was hoping 2 weeks, but now, maybe 1 month or 2 months. And that is okay, whatever, right? But it is the difference from making it or breaking it. In my case, I'm glad that it's not major, like John was saying, it's not major, we're working through it. But again, the experience has been positive. Right now, again, I'm just stuck in the process of going through the system to make, at the end, everything square. So again, just positive things about that. So now I want to talk about LEDA. In the forum, in the second forum, when we analyze the plans, something that, again, it was in all those plans with an intention, again, of people that work in previous years with a reason to create these plans. Again, so something that has been working for many years that at the end brought these plans to life. And in those plans, like, I'm not gonna read, but, kind of identifies that LEDA, it is an option to activate these plans, right? To see outcome of these plans. So I think it is important that, again, we continue talking about LEDA. I know it's been almost 2 years that we've been talking in LEDA, and hopefully now we can, see it. And I want to share, when we're working about interpretations, today the Senator Chris Chandler was here at Sala, and something that she said, and I think it is important because I saw Steve shaking his head when the code is the code. And she said, the law is not in stone, written in stone. That's what she said. So again, that means that it leaves room to interpret it in many ways. In this moment, we can have multiple interpretations about everything, right? So again, rules and interpretations. And I think right now I would like to present how the coalition interpret LEDA, right? And that is how I interpret it. And also, you have a copy of the Los Alamos ordinance, retail ordinance, that again, if you want to read, and then you can make your decision in how you want to interpret it, right? But this is what I will try to do my best and identify how, and I expect that I said the right thing. But, I would like to keep on this definition because, I really like it. It is empowering local governments to foster economic growth, quality of life, by enabling public investments in private projects to produce public benefit. So I really like that definition because if we can see it through that lens, and it's being suggested by these plans, so I think we can give an interpretation as is meant to be. Something that Steve reminded me as well, it was that, again, about that interpretation, actually the New Mexico State Attorney, at the end, when it comes to him, what he says, it is, I wrote it down, how is that he said, how it is written. I wrote that name what he said, but again, that is written as it is, right? That's the language, plain language. That is, at the end, how he is going to interpret it, a code or a law in this case. So again, that see what is that spirit of LEDA, right? And again, I will talk real quick, but it's also in the other pages that I print, and there is more information as well. But I'm just going to go real quick on this one. Again, empowering local governments for fostering growth. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no. So actually, how I will try to do my best to describe it. So there is a state law, the Local Economic Development Act, that allows municipalities to create private partnerships with private sectors to create a public benefit, and a way to go around anti-donation. So this was a tool that it was created for counties, governments, agencies to have authority to create this and give power to entities based on their unique characteristics. So it is a state law. And then Los Alamos passed another ordinance which also defines what is the process, and also the participations agreements and some more details. So there is a local and a state law. Is that is correct? Okay, I got it. Good. I was afraid. Okay. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so again, now it gives the authority and the power for the community entities to decide how they want to work on those participation agreements, and they all will be different, and they can be structured in multiple ways, through loans, grants, many local funds, state funds, so it gives a lot of flexibility on how to use and create those partnerships. And they should be evaluate case to case to see first and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit actually.
It'll become more clear as he goes through his presentation for anybody
I
that
hope
doesn't
so.
know what
If
it
not,
is.
we can continue asking questions. But again, I just want to try to see first the intention of LEDA, so then we can see the details, right? Because again, it is important that the coalition interpret it this way. So I hope that we can see that the reason it is at the end that create these public-private partnerships, and that is the key. Right, because you want to partner, and that goes both ways. When you want to partner to create some public benefit, and that partnership, I think it is the key of the spirit of the law, right? That then we can try to analyze all the boundaries or restrictions, but based on continuing thinking about, okay, at the end, what is the end result of these different public partnerships. And again, with the last bullet of the framework, that again, that we put those guardrails based again in the performance, in the participation agreement, in the partnership, and considering what is the impact and the benefit that the community also receives. And again, that giving the authority and power, in this case to county councilors, to make the decision if, and that is something actually I'm gonna go through what I think that, again, is my interpretation about what is the process that the Los Alamos local ordinance says that an application or a partnership should go through in this process. So again, first we identify the project, and there is some restrictions. So of course, there's gonna be a lot of things that are not gonna qualify, and immediately, not being able to go through the process because it is defined in black and white what is and what is not. So that is an option, and I'm just thinking that, again, that there could be a collaboration with LECDC where they can create workshops or train or trying to weave or trying to find opportunities that are most likely to qualify. So again, identifying the project with a set of criteria, and after it starts a process that the county council considers if it is something that they want to continue or not. And after that, starts creating this participation agreement, and that is where you start working in all the details of this partnership, right? And again, something important is to be transparent of what is the outcome that this will bring, have public input. So that is something that is defined as well in there. And there is also more like for staff, I guess, that they can try to figure out where the funds are, right? And might say and express that better. But then you sign this participation agreement, which again, I think it is the key of LEDA, how you're gonna participate in this partnership. And there is also that a requirement that you have to provide security based on the participation agreement that you are performing. And again, based on what I was saying before, all cases have the opportunity to be different and treated again to be different. If it is a grant, a loan, what that entitles, what kind of security you might require based on the participation, outcome, and all those things to be considered to, at the end, define what is the security that the county feels, that the county councilors feel that they want to participate in this project. I wanted to share some of the examples as how other communities are using this tool. So I have actually 3, because one I didn't have time to finish. But these are 2 examples again, and how they create these partnerships, provide these funds for economic development. And again, each city has its own needs and opportunities, but it just shows again that this is a tool that is fulfilling the purpose of creating economic development, creating jobs. At the end, also thinking about being diversify the economy and bring GRT from other sources. Again, this is an opportunity to use this tool to accomplish those goals. One example, and again, this one, Tortilla Factory, I didn't finish it, so I deleted. But one example, and good example actually, is CdeBaca. They went through a LEDA process, and they were able to get a participation agreement with the county. And now, again, they continue to grow, hire more people, and it is here locally and accomplish a lot of the same goals that, works for them and that it can work for a small business, right? But it is the same tools, accomplishing the same economic development goals, maybe one a little bit smaller than the other one. And the website, it shows more examples just on how other communities have used and different ranges, different examples, loans, grants, different results of performance based on, again, numbers. And at the end, something that is important with LEDA is that, talks about job creation, and something that it was important when it was created, but it also considers job retention, right? At the moment that you can create one job, you might be able to keep the other job. So that is also important to consider. So again, a lot of range, a lot of opportunities to use this tool for economic development in Los Alamos. So I think that's it. That's what I wanted to show. So again, thank you, and I hope that we continue working in interpreting things that are more business friendly and not be so restrictive that sometimes we limit the tools that we have available for accomplish what the plans hope to perform. I don't know. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Allan. So we're going to have a quick word of encouragement from Shannon, and then we'll open it up to questions. But if you have a question, flag me down to get the microphone so our audience online can hear it as well.
Power. Sure. Let me use yours. As much as I'd like the county to be clairvoyant, they aren't. And so part of the reason for these forums is to educate. So we know what we want to ask the county, because it was brought home today in a meeting with Lauren that was really helpful. Ann, Lauren, I gave you a new name, General Groves. Yeah. Helping have a very specific ask is really good. And it was brought home by Steve, too, that you really need to focus on what you need to do to get the job done. And that's true of the county, and it's true of us in business, too, that we have to be on the same page. So we're trying to build a coalition. We realized that the county, we'd like the county to be the everything and all things, and we've asked them to be even the keeper of the flame. And as a coalition, we've realized in the last few months that we actually have to be a part of that process. And that's what these forums are built on. We want to build a bridge. We don't want to build a moat between us and the county. We want to be a bridge so that communication can flow and so that information can flow. But it helps if all businesses have the same information. In every business, from government to the businesses that that Carolyn runs, the Bootery or Boomerang or anything, even Steve's architectural business, they run on relationships. And so what we're trying to do here is build relationships. We're not trying to harp on historical horror stories, because everybody could have those. We could run a tour, a horror story tour of any city in New Mexico. And I talk to different, I've developed land with my father in different cities in New Mexico, and also I've developed some in Omaha. And I can tell you that every city has its own unique problems and its own unique difficulties. And what we want to do, I don't want to live in Las Vegas or Las Cruces or Omaha. I want to live in Los Alamos. And so I want to put my efforts to making Los Alamos as business friendly as it can possibly be. And the only way that we can do that is if we're part of the solution. If we communicate effectively with a county that already works pretty well, and make it better. The other thing that comes in, this was rules and interpretations, and I taught high school for 40 years, so trust me that I've had arguments with kids about rules. I taught chemistry, and so the rules are pretty hard and fast. You don't light your partner on fire with a Bunsen burner. You don't drink stuff out of the beakers and test tubes. There's some rules that are intractable, and the county has those too. Communicating that in a way that we understand is important, and so we're trying to help them communicate it to us effectively. The other part of that is that some rules, those kids could argue their way around any rule that I ever had, and they were good at it. But what I kept in mind was the outcome. If my outcome in a chemistry lab was education and safety, then as long as I could keep those two really hard, fast rules firm, then I could probably find a way to interpret some of the rules that would make my lab remain safe, continue to be a good educational experience, but maybe not interpret the rules in a way that did not support the full participation of some of the students in my class. And what we're asking is not a bending of the rules, not a breaking of the rules, not a legal quagmire of interpretation of rules, but just listen. Just help us help you find a way that makes Los Alamos business sustainable and grow. And if we can do that, we have achieved something that few cities in New Mexico can do. I don't want to work anywhere else. This is my city, and it's your city too. So that's what these forums are about, and I appreciate everybody coming out, especially those online.
Okay, so this is just a quick view graph about what's coming up next. These forums are recorded and they are available at the website, Los Alamos Coalition. What is it? Coalition.losalamos.com. Anyway, you are invited, people online, whatever. Everybody's invited to join our coalition, which just means you'll get the notifications and emails. And our next forum is May 8th. So please mark your calendar. Now, does anybody have any questions?
I do have one. Steve, what would it take? What would be the incentives if we wanted to have, you and I are in that age bracket where we're not going to do this forever. If we want to get another architect in town or more architects, unless our county manager wants to hang out a shingle, what would it take to bring another architect to town? What would attract them?
Okay, now what you have to talk in here.
Beats me.
Okay, anybody else? Wait.
Who's Joe Padilla?
Who's Joe Padilla? Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on. I'm getting old too. Takes me a minute.
Just in response to that question, I think that maybe I can help reach out to the American Institute of Architects. They have a Santa Fe chapter and and Sylvia might be able to help me on this too, Albuquerque chapter. But I think reaching out to them, maybe letting them know a list of the needs, and maybe you can help us define what the needs are so we can pass that on to, because they're the American Institute of Architects is just it's the professional organization for architects. It's a good forum to reach out to some architects who might be looking for some work.
One of the things that's happened this year at the county was they went through a recertification process, And the person that was conducting the survey interviewed me and asked me some questions about how I would react to certain situations. But the bottom line was the community development department passed with flying colors, and we have the only county in the state of New Mexico that is certified by the International Building Council. Our staff is top notch. We can turn, I say we, and I do that because I practically work at the county as often as I'm there. But the turnaround time from when you submit a permit to when it is issued is 5 working days. Sometimes it's a little longer. Oftentimes, I work my butt off to put in a set of plans. Somebody looks at it and says, hey, wait, you didn't do such and such. Well, I welcome that input because it makes me better. It makes my drawing, my interpretation better. And so, yes, I have seen a lot of improvements at the county level. I can say I think that it's a business. They're always trying to improve, just like I am, just like you are.
Thank you, Steve. You want to respond or go for question?
Oh, hi, everybody. So I've studied the LEDA ordinance quite a bit. I've read it many times, the state ordinance and the local ordinance, and I just wanted to comment about this a little further and look at it in a little more macro perspective, a wider lens, and something Allan said too, just to add to what he said. So there's a phrase, the letter and the spirit of the law, and that refers to the literal wording of a law versus its spirit, its intended purpose, or underlying principles. So with the letter being the literal text and the spirit being the intent behind it, which is what's been mentioned a few times here tonight about why was this thing created to begin with and what does it want to accomplish. So like I think as Shannon was alluding to, a law might state that speeding is illegal, but the spirit of the law is to ensure road safety, right? So when we look at LEDA, I'm thinking it might be something to focus on the spirit of why this was written and what is the spirit of LEDA. And it's to provide business growth in the community, more jobs and prosperity for the enjoyment of both residents and visitors. And we want businesses to thrive here. So I think turning our attention to sometimes the spirit of why a law or an ordinance was created or a code would go a long way in helping us advance some of these initiatives that are in place to help us accomplish the goals of the plan. And a vision of what's desired for the community is outlined in the plans, especially that in relation to LEDA and businesses, the economic vitality strategic plan, and maybe the tourism strategic plan as well. So I think Los Alamos can lead the way and be an example for other communities and how we could use this for economic growth as a tool for economic growth. So it's just my comment.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm going to give this to you.
Thank you. Listening to the presentation, I just want to, again, thank you. A lot of it was directed to me. I'm not here to have it directed to me, but I am here to listen. Because I'm not the county. I am obviously a representative of the county, but there's a huge amount. It's a big organization with a lot of things we do. So I just want to acknowledge that, there's a lot of staff that do care about this thing, and they do have well intentions. It is important, as you said, Shannon, to really understand each other and be able to have that dialogue, at least in an empathetic way, and hear each other. Anna, your presentation broke my heart, and I just needed to acknowledge that. And I understand fear. It's a human thing. It's very hard to control or change someone else's fear as a government. But I think it's important to say that we are here as a public entity. You can speak up. As a local government, I'm in local government for a very big reason, because we are very accessible and transparent as compared to other governments. And on top of it, we are a very small town. I can't go to the grocery store without having someone stop me and talk. I can't go to a restaurant without somebody wanting to talk to me about something. So I think the majority of people don't fear saying something, and I would encourage people not to fear that, because at the end of the day, every 2 weeks in new employee orientation, I say people may come to us. We may not like their behavior. We may not think we deserve their behavior or their angst or their stress, but we are here to try to figure out if there's something we can do and not take it personally. And I can guarantee you that staff is there to do their work, and sometimes it is just as stressful on them when they don't know how to help somebody in distress. And we are talking about customer service, how to call for help, how to get someone else to support the conversation, to help move it in a positive direction if it's not. But those interrelations are the hardest part of what we do. We are under a lot of change, and every time there's change, the dynamic changes. I appreciate Steve's perspective. He has more stories in that than any of us. So I just want to acknowledge that and say I'm sorry for the fear. I would just encourage not having fear, because at the end of the day, we're here to do a job and we're accountable to the job. And it's really not personal. And I tell all of our staff that. I do want to just talk a little bit about what Janice said and just give you some context of LEDA. LEDA was created originally by the state to do more manufacturing, industrial type incentives. It was to bring money and manufacturing and industry into New Mexico. It was not originally written, as my understanding of I've been told, to have security and collateral. And what happened was people were given LEDA loans, very large ones, and their business closed the next day, and that taxpayer dollar was gone. So I appreciate the spirit of it, but I just needed to say that there's also a responsibility to public dollars, that they are used responsibly, and they are used for an intention. And whatever process or program we roll out, there's some sort of equal or access opportunity to, or process of how it's evaluated or rolled out, that it isn't, we do really need to, we are subject to criticism. That's our job. That those biases and the program has to be rolled out in a way that people have equal access to. And I know a lot of people are going to have their opinions about what the county should or shouldn't do. It's impossible for us to please everybody, but I agree 100% with what was said tonight, is that if we can't explain why in a reasonable, rational way, that's a problem. So let's leave it there. Thank you.
I have a question for Allan. Under what conditions would you consider re-entering your LEDA agreement?
You know the answer, right? But so yeah, the answer is I will not enter into a process of LEDA again, right? Just because, again, I feel that partnership is important, and that's what I felt that we were not focusing on that, and not I'm just focusing in the details, and I want to see results, right? So I want to see results that are positive. I think I still want to try to accomplish that plan, and I see now that seeing and understanding a little bit more and talking to more organizations, and that I want to try to accomplish that, and I see room that it can be more like a tourism project, that more organizations can join into an effort into seeing this as an option to kind of work all together into bringing with complementing with a facility like that, and a content that can show Los Alamos that we can help the tourism in Los Alamos, local businesses. So now how I envision it more is a way of a project that it can improve tourism to support local businesses. So if it is something like in that way that more organizations can participate, like LACDC and that is Main Street, but the national park, the Manhattan National Park, again, because they were interested in to convert produce a production of behind the fence in an immersive way. And that, again, brings and adds a lot of value as well. So, again, if we can come into a project that they participate, LACDC, again, the county in this participation, I see something really productive, but that is just me dreaming. So, yeah.
So I have a question, and it's probably for Ann, or maybe Janice knows. But you mentioned the clawback, whatever it's called. Is there a time frame or something? So I get a grant or a loan, and my business fails within 6 months or 10 years.
Yes.
Is there, or is that all just in the plan that's
So
written
so Allan mentioned the participation agreement, and all of the time and the whatever the commitments are is all proportional to what the ask is.
Okay.
So a bigger ask might have a longer duration of participation, whereas a smaller ask
So
might
it
have
varies.
yeah. So
Okay.
for small ask, it could be 6 months satisfies it, depending on. Yeah. Oh, for me, 20,000, under 100,000.
Okay.
You saw some of the ranges up there. I mean, yeah.
I was just going to add that I believe the clawback needs to be equal to the amount of the ask of the LEDA loan or grant, and that it's reduced as time goes on and some of the participation agreement is fulfilled, and it reduces in time.
And just something add to that again that I tried to explain in there, that it's important because it is different and it changes away as we, and again, we went this through the details when we were working with Ann and kind of learning from that at the end it is based on performance, right? So you see it as, okay, how you're gonna perform, and that is how you base security. So again, that performance, as you perform, that security starts reducing because you already are performing. Right, so again, then the county councilors, when they make that decision, again, they can see all these different options and ranges on how that might affect the ultimate decision.
Coming from a business perspective, when a business starts up or when you buy into an existing business or inherit one, you have key employees. And you know that if you lose that employee, you're screwed. And so I look at Los Alamos kind of with that same lens. If we lost our grocery store, we'd be up a creek. If we lost probably one of our gas stations, we'd be up our creek. There's certain sectors in Los Alamos that the Business Coalition is really intimately aware of that are key economic pieces of Los Alamos for our quality of life. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, meeting with other philanthropic organizations, and Susie Buffett, who's Warren Buffett's daughter, says, Los Alamos, she says, I saw Oppenheimer. She says, but you also have something else. And I thought, oh, what's this going to be? I thought nuclear waste. I didn't know. Yeah, problems with plutonium. Sala. And she says, you have this she called it living room because she knows the language. She said, you have this place that they've converted, I understand, converted a theater to a presentation place. She says, I want to do that in a couple of other cities that are losing their theaters, because theaters can be, and I agree, Allan's heard me say this before, the hub of a place. And so as a coalition, sometimes to understand our perspective, we may be focused on a store like Boomerang that's a real destination shopping place. Doesn't exist anywhere else in the state or any place in Omaha, a bigger city. There are certain businesses that I would really, really hate to lose. And I'm going to be passionate about it, hopefully not ad nauseum or in an irritating way, but understand that my passion comes from the same thing, that I think those are the canaries in the coal mine. If we lost one of those key businesses, we'd lose a part of Los Alamos we'd never get back. Metzger's, some of those places.
So, Allan, you could expand. Let's spread.
No, and I just think about, again, sometimes I think, it's crazy all the things that we have been able to do, and it's so awesome, right? But all that is with, and that's why, again, I think the partnerships, because if this would not be successful if it wasn't because of partnerships with Anne to do PJs and movies. So Saturdays, they come in their PJs and sit here with their parents to watch a movie, right? And that is the reason why we are open, because of partnerships that are able to accomplish that. And again, with China, she loaned me some money, so I could do this, and I finally paid her, I hope, right? And then I got another loan and more loans, but you just continue. And again, multiple partnerships that has made this successful. Now, we're doing this for the teens, that we're gonna start doing for the teens. Again, just easily one meeting, okay, what can we do? Okay, let's try to, again, we focus on the outcome. Okay, are we gonna get paid? Yeah, maybe, right? But we're gonna focus on the outcome first, and then we will figure out how we get paid. And sometimes we lose money, but at the end result, it is that the parking lot is being used. It was empty before. Now Pi 239 is there. And then the doors are open, so we can do this. And today we had the chamber breakfast, another event in here, doing this. Sometimes we're also in all 4 theaters at the same time for multiple things. So again, that it is successful, but it's again thanks to all these partnerships that it is the core of making something successful.
So I sure don't want to, throw some cold water or anything. I'm trying to but some of the problems, and Chris Chandler sat there today at our chamber meeting discussing, all these things they did, and I'm going, it's not enough, Chris. You're not helping. I don't see you solving the problems where there's problems. I mean, I complain that, there is 11, I forgot my number now, but it's like there's 11 bridges between here and Santa Fe. And that's, maybe it's 12, but anyway, both sides, right? And there is just one out of those 12 that you can go across and not know there's a bridge there. And I actually knew the gentleman that did that because I had another project with him. And he even commented, he said, yeah, everybody else did these and you know which one I did. And I asked Chris, I said, what is the deal? Why don't the state focus on, better infrastructure on the roads? And she started talking about, the infrastructure with the internet and whatever. I said, that's great, but you're not going to get a trucking company to move goods very cheaply from point A to point B if you don't fix the stinking roads. And, and then she goes on about not having enough labor. Well, I get that. We all know that. And and of course the county is addressing the affordable housing stuff. Trust me, Shannon and I the employee business has just been extremely hard, especially since COVID. It was getting bad before then, and it is terribly worse. And that's what my gripe is with her with that Family Leave Act. Those people need time off. Well, anytime I gave someone time off, they never got enough hours. They'd use them up as faster than I could give it to, they earned. But the problem is that a restaurant, if that person is entitled to so many days off, that restaurant's going to have to close because they don't have enough. It still happens. Melissa at the Blue Window still, if they run out of help, she's got to close. She can't run it that way. And that's what that's what bothers me about, you know, that overall picture is the problem of labor. And then they want to help these people out, which I don't, you know, but the two major problems was, and Lisa Shinge said it, and I said it. Allan, if you were working for me, and you start at $15 an hour, I want to pay you $25 because Shannon said you get a key employee and you want to keep them. But if I pay that person $25 an hour, she loses her Medicaid benefits for her kid.
You know, John, the points are important, and you and I share the same opinions on a lot of these, and that's why this coalition is necessary, is to voice our opinions about things that might impact us. Because, like I said earlier, I'd love for the county to be clairvoyant, but they can't, and so all things to all people, but I think our responsibility and the purpose of these forums is. We gotta inform people. We gotta say, hey, if you do that, have you thought about this impact? So, like Allan's comment, we're going toward the outcome. We're figuring out the outcome. And if some of the things that we're doing are well-intentioned or, you know, nice plans, but they hurt the overall outcome, then somebody has to know that. And that's part of the purpose of us here. And I appreciate voices like yours, because I've heard you in council meetings say things that I hadn't thought of. And it's like, wow, where did I miss that piece of education?
So that seems like a really good way to wrap up. If you could
You wanna any comments
start
there?
over.
Something else.
Oh, and while Allan's headed up there, please take some cookies. Take some cookies to your kids. And
Yeah, this is great, by the way. The presentation, like a lot of useful information there. And I'll try to make my comment succinct, which I'm not very good at, just to warn you a little bit. Bringing together a few things and sort of echoing what John was saying. I own my own small business. I'm a consultant, so I'm just working from home. I don't have a brick and mortar or anything like that. But I grew up in a restaurant family and used to work in restaurants, did everything from, you know, slinging hash to fine dining. And so for me, I'd love to see better restaurants here, more restaurants here. And back to what Anna was saying about having fear, I don't really fear the county so much, although I probably should because of some of the stories. I mean, the 5 years I've been here, the more stories I've heard about the business environment and the drawbacks to it and the risks of it. Maybe it's because so many people in the county can't actually talk about what they do at work. We have to talk about what's happening with the business environment. I don't know, but I'm actually less afraid of that, and I'm more afraid of the fact that I know that running a restaurant is extremely hard. It's an extremely tight margin business. It's very subject to failure. And when you get to a point like John is making, you depend on these employees. Sort of as a country, we've kind of gotten used to not really paying restaurant employees very much. Maybe they work for tips. That can be hard to get by on. And when you're in a place like Los Alamos, where the cost of living is so high, the housing and everything. I live in White Rock, and I know White Rock used to have a much more vibrant business community. And people will say, well, big box stores drove them out. I'm sorry, but the Walmart in Espanola is not a destination for Los Alamos citizens. And they're not going there to get restaurant food. You can't even get Domino's in White Rock, right? So something else has driven out the businesses in White Rock. And it's the cost. And it's the owners of the property. And so I really think something bigger has to be done. Like John was saying, something has to be done. Something groundbreaking. I mean, Los Alamos, last time I checked, has the most millionaires per capita of any county in the country. We're all here because of government largesse to a degree. We should be leaders. We should be innovating. I mean, this should be where we shouldn't be bringing in consultants to tell us what to do. We've got all these brilliant people here. We should be taking risks. That's it.
yeah, have you joined the coalition? Have you joined the coalition?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Pressure, pressure.
So I just wanted to say that I consider Sala and this business here is an anchor business in town. So I want to thank Allan for keeping this open and available for all these events and for everybody. If the doors were to shutter here, it would be a huge loss to the community, as Shannon was pointing out. So yeah, and I just have a quick question. So this might be for Ann or for the counselors here, but regarding LEDA, are there any ideas you have for what would be acceptable securities for a smaller, like retail type business that might want to apply and have to come up with the security? What types of securities would be looked at as maybe as acceptable or favorable?
Sure, I can try. There's a few different things. The easiest one, and most of what, when we've done LEDAs in the past, is just some sort of lien on the property, but that requires the property owner's cooperation. I could see that maybe being good if, like, maybe the LEDA was for ADA improvements or things that the property owner really benefited from, even if the tenant were to leave. I think it might be hard if it was for something that it didn't improve the property value or something, so that might be too much of an ask. The other thing is letter of credit. It's very expensive. You go to the bank and you have to pay for it. But as was pointed out, by you, Janice, that as you provide service or the participation, that amount can be lowered on some sort of schedule in the participation agreement. So it doesn't necessarily have to stay at the high rate. And I imagine for a shorter term type project or participation, that might be doable. No, it's a bank that issues a letter of credit, and the bank is covering it. So you work with the bank to get a letter of credit from a financial institution. So an angel investor could be a little different. An angel investor could put some money into some sort of escrow account that is pledged as the collateral. I'm not sure I understand equal. Right. So there's a couple things with LEDA. It's always good to have some sort of skin in the game. And so usually matching some sort of matching contribution. So when you looked at that little chart for LEDA, there was the amount of money provided, the amount from different agencies. So there should be there should be some match. It doesn't have to be, but I would say that's good to have a match, because I think then the person's more invested in the success. And then so let's just say you wanted to buy kitchen equipment and you had $50,000, but the kitchen equipment cost $100,000, and you need to replace it all. That would be something where you would only need the collateral for the amount that you're borrowing, or right. And now there are also loan. You can also do it as a loan and lower no interest and get a payment schedule for some of that too, which is is another way that some of it's done. So to finish, so there's the letter of credit is another way. And then we are talking to some folks to see if maybe there was some sort of an organization that could manage a regional pool of, putting some money together that could be accessible for the LEDA for retail program. The only thing is, when you tie that money up as the collateral, it can only be released as the county releases it to use for something else. So it is tied up for the period of time for the participation. But I think that might be a good opportunity, but realize that will not be public monies, that would be private monies, and that would be it would have to be an agreement between whoever wants that to use as a collateral and whatever agency is managing that.
So just is that personal preference of the county to request in these shapes the collateral or security? Is that personal, or is that in the ordinance in that shapes?
So the way that, so we have financial experts that, work in the, industry standard definitions of what collateral is, and there's laws of government and what they can and cannot take. and how they can and cannot take. And so what collateral means something that we can collect on if necessary, if the terms of the participation agreement are not met. And it needs to be something that we do not take more than what the value is. So for instance, if someone puts up their property and we have to be able to sell it, and we can't take more than what the property is is owed, so whatever remainder goes back to the person who put it up for collateral. So it has to be something that has a market value. The other way we can do it is and can be sold, and the other way we can do it is on businesses. Sometimes you can do UCC on the total businesses for the like a lien on the business for that amount, and then you have sort of like an ownership. But then again, that has to be able to be sold and collected on. Oh gosh, Allan, was it uniform something? I can't tell you. It's basically your UCC filing for a business and the value of your business. Yeah.
Like a valuation or?
Yeah.
Okay. But I think my question is that if that is a preference of accepting in a form or shape called, well, again, and I'm going to refer it as what in there is security. And I want to also say this because it's important, and I don't know how you say it, that it is based on what you request, but also the entity it is performing same equal of amount of value of the participation agreement. For example, in our example of Sala, we were gonna perform for the same amount that we were asking equally in return. For example, in this case, I don't remember the amounts right now, but whatever, let's say $400,000. It was the grant or loan or how we, and that, again, that makes a difference. It is a grant or loan because the security might be different. But it was a certain amount, and then we will be providing, opening the doors and providing the service of having the space open for visitors to come and see that for 4 years, right? So we were providing that in exchange as a performance. So that is also that, again, it is the security, but you already are performing as well, right? So again, that part of trying to kind of identify it as collateral, I think it is more restrictive in my personal interpretation.
Yeah, he said.
So it was a couple things. It was tied to the jobs. I think there was jobs in there and the value of a job. I think part of it, and that was part of it. Another part of it was we went based on the hourly rental rate, and then that amount, that number of times it would be open to the public for free and an exchange, and there was that calculation. So there was a variety of different things that we used to sort of, and that's how we got to all those numbers.
Well, we did it a lot, but it was, again, that we were performing at the end. We were performing and we were providing an exchange that it also that has to have an equal value, right? A monetary value that is also part of that.
And it's a bit of a mismatch because the LEDA regulations were written partly based on a law that existed to try to attract medical facilities and practitioners into smaller communities. And that's where they kind of got some of the language. There's a different, performance was based, a lot of performance language is based on that. So I'm in a small town in the middle of nowhere and I need a doctor. I'm going to have a performance clause in my agreement with that doctor where I provide a clinic, I provide utilities, I provide a whole bunch of stuff, even equipment. But that doctor has to promise performance for so many years and can't just leave. So it's a little bit different to try to put performance on a different economic sector. And it's kind of a mismatch. That's where the confusion comes.
Just real quick, I want to finalize with this and in my part, because I want to go through that sense of, again, that maybe, just again, what you guys were saying, that we should be leaders in trying to see how we can be successful in maybe doing something that people follow us in a way of model of economic development. So again, that will be ideal. And I think we have an opportunity, right? It's just, and I hope maybe that is an option in the other forum where it's more like a workshop. Again, now, sorry, workshop about how can we put on hands, maybe with that goal, even that it's too far, can we be a leader? And then go from there, and what it will take just as a test, right? A hypothetical test, and see what it will take to be that leader in New Mexico. And I think, real quick, back to Sala and how the outcome of what we do here impact other people in New Mexico. We just got the governor signed the bill for independent theaters to sell beer and alcohol. And again, that it is here in Los Alamos, and now it has an impact in New Mexico, right? So Los Alamos Little Theater will be impacted about that, and I'm glad, right? And now it would be cool to go there and be able to have a glass of wine. And also other theaters that now have this opportunity and also will incentivize maybe new projects for people to take the risk and open. So again, hopefully with that mentality that maybe I will try to frame it in that way, what it will take to be leaders in New Mexico by trying to be creative and smart. And I know that Los Alamos is a smart town and that we can figure it out and show.
I want to say something. So I'm here. Everybody knows that I work for the county, but I'm here as a participant, as a resident of Los Alamos. I'm a member here. We come here every week, at least, like, to watch 2 movies. We love movies. We love theater, and it's really congratulations to you for keeping it forward, moving forward. I want to share this one thing that's personal to Allan. I was so, I was just floored, just over the moon by seeing Allan's post in the paper that he will be opening for 2 Fridays, starting next week, I believe next Friday, for high school students, right? You're opening your doors to high school students. And that was in direct response to Libby's comments that she had added, right? So Allan's there listening. He's going out there creating a partnership with JJAB and bringing this thing to our community that's needed. I have a high school age kid, and so I understand how important it is to keep these kids from, they go all over the place. They become very dangerous when they have cars, and I'm just observing that now. So what a wonderful thing for you to open your doors to kids, and I hope you find more partnerships, right? So I hope, and so partnerships is something that I want to mention here, because I keep hearing everybody talk about this. Having these partnerships is very important in small towns, right? Creating partnerships with Anna, creating partnerships with John, with the county, it's really important. So that's what I want to mention. I've been reading code since first semester of School of Architecture, right? I know IBC. I know how to find things in it. I started reading uniform building code that when I was in school. So I'm familiar with a lot of different codes. Before I moved here, I was flying around the country and getting permits from planning and zoning commissions, and sitting across from people like this guy back here and asking for approvals, right? That's what I've been doing. But my success in that was establishing these partnerships. You can't go and sit in front of somebody that you don't want to talk to or you're afraid to talk to. So establishing a partnership, establishing a friendship, understanding that they're human and you're showing up as a human. I think that's really important, especially in our small towns. I've lived in I love small towns. You know, this is the smallest I've lived in. My college town was smaller than this. And it's very important to have these partnerships. And I think like if you stop fearing the county and start establishing relationships, start showing up there as a human, as a person, as a local business owner, you will see that there's value in sitting down with them before you start, before you buy something, before you start a lease with somebody, before you start an agreement, sit down with them and see what are the possibilities. I've had plenty of conversations with Janet. She left earlier. Before she bought that property, we would talk to her. In my previous capacity, we would talk about what the possibilities were before she signed the dotted line, before she bought her partner out of that. We talked about what the possibilities were. So I think it's important to show up and sit down at that table across from county people. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but just appreciate all the putting these together, and just want to echo the comments about understand the fear and your retaliation or other fears you might have of dealing with the county, things people have heard about the county. But we do have 7 counselors, so I know it's kind of the expectation. We're not going to always know that you want to talk to us. So reach out to one of us and start a conversation. And any counselor can get something on the agenda. We all have regular conversations with Ann. Just had mine today, and we try to communicate internally, as we can. Obviously, we can't have more than 3 counselors discussing something, but appreciate having the opportunity to have the working group we have here, and just anybody that's on the working group or anybody else on council. I know I'll speak for them that I'm sure they're all willing to hear and listen to you. And if they're not stopping by, then you can find our email addresses, and we're all interested in talking and hearing more, and especially things that can help us move forward. So that's what I'm looking forward to with the next workshop. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. I think we're done. Please grab some cookies. I said again. Please.